You're listening to the Mondays with Midja podcast, founder and CEO of Legal Leadership, a company specialising in the leadership training and coaching of lawyers. Get set to jumpstart your week with a shot of mojo as Midja and her guests talk all things life, love and leadership.
Hey, it's Monday and I'm Midja and welcome to the podcast all about life, love and leadership. In our studio today, we have the fabulous Larissa Rose, who I've known for a few years now. She is well known on the Gold Coast and in Australia and globally for the work she does in the environmental space. She is the director and founder of GG Enviro, and I want to welcome her to the podcast studio.
Amazing. Thank you, Midja. It's wonderful to align and be able to have this discussion today.
Absolutely. We have not seen each other in person for a little while, but of course through socials and stuff, I feel like we're always connected.
For sure.
Now, before a guest comes on the podcast, I do my homework and Google and so forth, but tell me something, Larissa, that I would not have found out about you on Google.
I used to do lots of archery.
Oh, is that a family thing?
Archer? It was more of my first relationship. We used to do archery together all the time, and then I used to do a lot of bow hunting as well, which now mortifies me because when I had my first child, I couldn't shoot animals anymore with a bow and arrow. I used to go out hunting. Yeah,
Yes.
Super random because I'm in an environment people think it would not be a part of who I am and my constitution or personality. But
Yes.
it was more around we shot a lot of feral species on farms and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
No.
So that is something that I've learnt about you and our listeners would have as well. Love it.
Massively. I don't drop that conversation piece very often.
So tell me about where you got to where you are basically, because why the decision to do this line of work and to study in this area. Talk to me about that, the why, the passion behind it, the connection. Is there a story around the decision to work in this space?
Yeah, there is. And it's quite pivotal, and I really hope it adds value to everyone listening because I changed my whole career from being I was a chef
I saw
way
that
back in the
you were a
day.
chef, yes.
And then I decided I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to be a florist in my mid-20s.
Oh.
So I did floristry. And then I got to 28 or so, and divorced and went through this space, which you kind of do probably a lot as a mother. I have 2 children at that time, going, well, what am I doing? What's important to me? And where do I see myself? And I want to be able to shape up a career that gives me the capacity to be able to provide and, grow my world and my life now as an independent person. So I made that decision when I was about 28, 29 to do that. And I just went back and started, I didn't go back because I'd never been before. I started uni as a 29-year-old.
Okay.
And started doing all my, environment degrees.
Why
You'll love this
environmental
one.
science?
Yeah. Well, in the middle of that sort of grey, dark phase that we all have after
And the
in
awakening that comes
yes.
from that, yes.
The dark magic I heard from a holistic workshop thing I was at the other week,
Yes.
the dark magic period, is that I was reading the Gold Coast Bulletin, and on the back of the Gold Coast Bulletin was this article that talked about a gentleman who'd come over from China to bring over a wave movement technology, and he was trialling it at the Spit.
Okay.
So wave movement technology is a type of renewable energy where the current and movement in the tides, which is consistently going all the time, ever going, moves these sort of counteracting kind of levers that creates kinetic energy. So that energy turns into
We can use that.
generators, yeah. And I read that article and I went, wow. And I ripped it out and I wrote my new job, put it in a yellow envelope. And to fast track that, I worked with him a year later.
That's
I
I was
know.
going to say random, but maybe it was the universe. I don't know.
Well, I started then going, okay, well, I need to get some credentials behind me. So I started at Bond, and then I looked at the conferences that were coming up in environment going, okay, well, I've got to submerge myself in this industry. and that guy was speaking at the conference.
Do you feel like, I know, whose quote is it? Is it Viktor Frankl's? That we detect rather than invent our mission in life. Did you feel that maybe it was this kind of work or this connection with this work was always kind of inside you, that there was a passion always there? Or because I'm imagining, like, I read the newspaper and read books and articles all the time, and I'm not ripping things out and putting it into envelopes. So there must have been something. There was some pull on that topic and that issue for you.
It was exponential. I just lived and breathed and read everything. And I went to that conference and heard him speak, and went up to him when he finished speaking and said, "Can I work with you? I'd love to do some work experience and work with you." So I did work experience for 6 weeks, and then he took me on part-time, and I was studying at uni as well. And plus I think I had another job going on the side to keep it all moving. But yeah, and it does, that anchoring of that feeling, I think for me that's probably been that one time in my life that it felt so real and fluid, and that drawnness.
I love that. And I certainly find that in my work. And, like, I didn't find it as a lawyer. I was doing the work and I thought, I don't think I'm a very good lawyer. And I just didn't connect. I didn't feel it was the best work that I could be doing, and it didn't light me up. But certainly when I started, coaching and facilitating and speaking and stuff like that, and even last week I was in Melbourne with some scientists, the Bureau of Meteorology, and it's just my happy place. I was just like, I was really in tears of just the joy of being able to spend those 2 days with that group of people. And people ask me a lot, because they go, "Well, Midge, but you're an idealist. Like, can I really find that sort of connection and that sort of passion from, in inverted commas, the work that I do? Like, is it possible for everyone?" And I don't know kind of what I say, but what would you say to that? Because you have that in the work that you do. I absolutely know it.
Yeah.
Possible for everyone?
Yeah, it's tricky, because I probably had that thought process as well at times, where I'm like, what is that thing? I went through, I'm in third career now.
Yes.
So, and I always used to be slightly probably embarrassed or mortified that I didn't know my thing, or I wasn't all over it. But as I say to my interns all the time who come through our work, is that it's sort of okay not to know sometimes, but when you get there, you'll feel that synchronicity.
Yes.
And so in answer to that, if someone asked me, I for sure would say it's there for you, but this is a part of the journey now for you to sync up with it. But it's in going inward and asking yourself those really solid questions of what ticks your talk. And
yeah. And it's an interesting one. Certainly, I suppose we share that sort of commonality around, for me, I was doing this work inside of a law firm, but to start my own business and to really go deep in it was a time where marriage breakdown, I was in the dark magic phase. Do you think that sometimes we can get just caught up in, I don't know, other people's expectations, or just one day moving on to a week, moving on to another year, and I don't know, like, do we have to go through the darkness to kind of be able to do this work and to go inward? Because it'd be nice to do it without the crisis. You know what I mean? Without the tears. Like, it would be nice just to be able to go, you know what, this is the work I'm going to do for me.
Yeah. Without the tectonic plates moving.
Yeah.
And that trigger, I think, sometimes I always visualize it's like it rattles the cage, and you finally, rattle or move. And I think those catalyst moments that you're making mention of there maybe help shove away or help create clarity, because we do get complacent. We sit in pre-programmed conditioned behaviours.
Yes.
What we think we should be doing, whether you're doing the white picket fence early, or you should be doing that, or it's supposed to be at uni, or I should be working in this firm over here in London now, or whatever it is that, probably a lot of the conditioning that was there, I think, for me going through. But I think it took me till I was probably 28, 29 and going through that catalyst time. I wouldn't have probably made that shift, to be honest, Midja, if I hadn't had that tectonic movement in my life to go, wow, I need to steer my own ship now. I need to keep it afloat. But I want to be able to go, well, what do you really want to do, Larissa? Like, where are you at? What's important to you? What adds value? Yeah, they're the questions that I probably didn't ask when I was like, yeah, I'll join up. I'll become an apprentice chef. 17. Do I really want to do it? Is this important for me? Where do I see myself going in that career? Nah, didn't do that work. Just did it.
Yes.
Get settled.
Yeah.
Get the apprenticeship. Yeah. So.
Absolutely. And it's, I know our children are kind of around the same ages, and we have those, teenagers, older teenagers embarking on first careers and first jobs. And yeah, I always say to them kind of, you've got to go through it. There's no kind of going over it or under it. And no one can kind of do the work for you or to tell you that. You maybe say this to your interns as well. You've just got to go through it and experience it and
wade through
take
it.
from those experiences.
Yep.
Talk to me a little bit about sort of when you started and now to the business you have and the leader you are now, and what's that journey been like?
Yeah.
I know that's a big question, but
I can break
just see
that
what
down.
comes to mind. Yeah. When I ask you that, what comes to mind?
Yeah. Well, when you just said that, then I was like, yeah, like my business has made me and shaped me to be the woman I am today. Massively. And anyone who's listening knows exactly what it's like when you just start up even the concept, even if you're just sole tradering it, and you're moving through. And a lot of my business was sole trader for most of the time. And then, we've progressed across becoming a company and things like that, which is just literally just paperwork. But it can change your mindset too. You're like, oh, we're a company now. But yeah, it has made and shaped me. And it's been a beast of a journey. Like, honestly, it's challenged me and squeezed me so many times, as you would know, Midja, and what it's done is I think it's really brought to the surface and highlighted for me those self-worth values, the low parts of me that probably needed more work. The business has definitely pointed into those corners around self-worth and value.
Yes.
And where I needed to expand and grow, maybe reprogram my thinking and mindset around it, preconditioned behaviors.
Yes.
Those insecurities that sit there. I'm very kind of strong personality and dynamic and happy and engaging and all of that. But, I have moments sometimes where I'm like, wow, I don't think I can do this. Or how am I going to make it happen? Or through those bouts of the business model, you're like, wow, I don't even think I can get through this next quarter. Let alone, how do you put on an FTE?
Yes.
What does that look like? What the hell is that stuff?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely, it's grown and shaped me, but it's, we've grown exponentially to the last few years,
I've seen that.
which has been
I've been
solid.
watching going, you go. Because I remember sort of the first conversation we had, which may have been years ago now, at Nobby's Beach here, we sat and had a cocktail one afternoon. And, just talking about business and vision and all of that. And I think that's the great thing about being connected to people and is being able to watch that growth and that experience. And you sort of course, only get one version of that. And as you said, there's certainly a lot of work in the background and sometimes some of that self-doubt that comes through. You as a leader, what's important for you? If I ask you about when people would describe your leadership, when people, what's important for you from a legacy point of view? How do you want to be described? What's important?
Yeah. So I guess I can sort of see two aspects, how I see myself on how I like to lead, and then maybe the perception of how I am seen as a leader.
Yes.
But I'm really big on intentionality, and I know we kind of had a bit of a chinwag about that brief of that word earlier, but it's always been a big one for me, and a way that I lead and give that sense of self-ownership and accountability that whether it's team leaders or the interns or children, whoever is around, your own children around you, is around that, and, being very intentional. So that's really, big for me on that one. And that's kind of a bit of a broad word. It's,
I was going to say, how do you practice that?
Yeah, well, I think that comes down to that sort of daily accountability, isn't it? Having intentionality, but doing the work, understanding that the why, the purpose, the importance of what you're doing it for, and having intentionality is important because you have to build that connectivity to those goals and what that greater outcome is. And having that more visionary context of who you are, where you're going, why you're doing it, how does this add value, how is this purposeful and impactful change that you're making. I guess there's some of those probably keywords with my leadership as well. It needs to be connected to something on the horizon that you're shooting for.
Yes.
But as we all know, there's those trillion little micro steps in between that and the big macro one down the line to get where you want to go. So, yeah, I think also I'm very feedback I've had over the times with the interns has been my very holistic approach with leadership as well. And my leadership can sort of tend to want to poke and prod around what are those questions inside that are going on for you that would help you show up to be a much more stronger and more committed employee or a worker or, intern who's coming in for the day, or even, your own children or your friends, I guess, isn't it?
Yes.
Ripple effect of that leadership. And being courageous is always a big one. I am courageous and I'm scared inside still sometimes, but I hold on to that courage that I know that I have because that gives me that conviction that knowing I can do this and I can go. So I sort of like hold on to it while I'm going through the ride.
Yeah. Is it getting easier? Because you've stepped out and you've done it and you've stepped again and you've done it and you've stepped again. So is it getting easier for you to kind of feel that, but do it anyway?
Yeah, feel the fear and do it anyway. I love that book. Yes, it is. And how I make it easier is I've got to stop and turn around and look back.
Yes.
And recalibrate and check the stuff I have done. Okay. And remember the fear or the insecurity or the lack of courage I may have felt in those other times of trials and tribulations that we all go through, and go do the reset, recheck, and then go, okay, look, you've done this before, you've got this, just jump, go.
Yes, absolutely. And sometimes I find, if I'm working with someone and there might be certain paradigms or certain scripting around themselves or a piece of work or whatever it might be. And then when we go back and we look at some of those absolute statements and some of the evidence, we start to go, well, hang on, but you did that and that happened. And they go, oh, that's right. And then we might point to something else and they go, oh, that's right. So I think, yeah, absolutely. Sometimes we, in the busyness, or we just do the next thing or whatever it might be, we don't take the time, as you said, to recalibrate, to reset, and to really think about some of those past achievements or successes and what we told ourselves about those things.
Yeah, and you said the key word before, it's evidence-based.
Yes. Our brains like the evidence.
Got to look back and, cheer yourself for those little moments that in that moment they were huge. You look at them now and go, oh, that's nothing compared to this molehill I've got to get through now. But yes.
But at the time, those same feelings. I like the part you said around the bigger vision and breaking that down as well. Because I think that's an important trait in leadership. Sometimes you can get the high level vision piece, but an inability to be able to bring that down to individuals about, well, how do I contribute and what's in this for me? Or you get the grind of the daily piece without the overall vision. And as leaders, we've got to kind of be able to do both and hold the space for both.
Yeah. There's a gentleman called Brandon Dawson who does a lot of work in the United States. He's sold multi-trillion $1 million kind of companies. And he has a principle, especially around their employees, which is around their leadership model on how they hire and fire and promote their employees. And everything is built around the premise of they curate and work with their employees, and everything's on your personal, professional, and financial goals. And as having an employer that sits down with you and, and this is where I see beautiful leadership straight away,
Yes.
is Brandon's philosophy is around ensuring that you have sat down and mapped out with your employees around what their personal, professional, financial goals are, because that instills and invigorates your team leaders to be a part of the team and to also feel that sense of connection and the bigger champion winning sort of philosophy in the team leader, that your employer is there to help champion you. If your goals in 2 years for your professional side of things is to get an extra added on part of the degree, well, a part of that is that your employer would be supporting you to achieve that. Or, financially you may be wanting to get to a certain retainer, but your employer would be sitting down to map that out with you. Well, what is that and what does that look like and what you would be needing to do? So I think that's where this intentionality comes in quite important with his philosophy. And so it's the personal side as well. His philosophy is around, with your team members, you want to know what their personal goals are. If they're wanting to get their high qualification diving course and that's invigorates them and it's going to cost them 10K to get that and they need to go to Fiji to do this special one, then you would be understanding of that and championing that as the big leader. And then also you would be working out what that looks like and means for your employee, whether that's, okay, well, if you've got to be away in 2023 for that goal and you're going to be away for 8 weeks and this is now linked to your financial goal because by next year you'd like your retainer to be an extra 15 or 20K, that's where it gets really intentional with this PPF system, which they call it the personal, professional, and financial goals. So
I love
look
that.
out Brandon Dawson and Natalie
heard of
Dawson.
him.
They really run that and they run workshops around employers embedding that philosophy and mentality.
And, and I love that because when we, when I talk to team members, often if I go into an organisation and, have some one-to-ones with team members or some group sort of Q&As and so forth, themes that come up, I don't feel valued, I don't feel understood, I've got a whole lot of stuff, as you said, but personal stuff going on over here that, my leader doesn't understand, and that like one size fits all kind of approach to performance reviews, goal setting, anything else. This concept, as you said, the personalization of it, the humanizing leadership, and seeing that alignment for them and their own goals, and not just that, well, it's your business and I'm working for you and your goals and your financial, success, but that they're actually working like their own little mini business and life within a company.
Yeah.
That's got to make a difference to commitment.
It would be. And as you know, it's that retaining your staff. And how would you build that? You would want it. How amazing is it when you know that your boss is cheering you on the journey, on the bigger picture journey you have with your own personal stuff, or, you're saving to try and get a house and in 3 years' time you need to be on this retainer for it. And they're like, yep, all right, we can make that happen. Let's map out what that is and what that looks like and what that means now to help shape up where you want to get to. Yeah.
And so certainly I know that you in your company have interns that come in to do work, and I'm always interested to hear from business owners around when they're recruiting our new sort of generation, if you like, of professionals coming into the workforce. What do you think they're looking for in roles? What are they looking for from their leaders? What are you seeing or what are you hearing? And I know that can be individual wants and needs, but just generally, what are people saying? This is what I want from my work. This is what I want from my employer.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because as an employer, I have taken, just to help provide some context and value there. So our company, GG Enviro, we've taken over the last probably nearly 5 years now, we've taken over 40 interns.
Wow.
So this probably helps answer some of that leadership question you said before. The reason why I've done that is I felt like I've always had a duty of care to support, evolve, and stabilise and grow my industry and sector, which is the environmental sector, which is that's an umbrella, and there's many micro sectors underneath the environment. But there's a role that I have as a leader in my sector to ensure that I'm training up and creating those leaders of the future. So it's always been, our internship programs have been around building the leaders of the future. So what I've felt and needed, as in what's expected with these people to be retained, has morphed and changed. And I think maybe it's a little bit because our environment sector has changed significantly over the last 4 to 5 years, but a lot from when I started at 12 years ago. Environmental consultants were very clunky. It was just a little bit like law, just regulatory compliance sort of side of things. So you needed to have there was an expectation you needed to have that sort of capabilities and things like that, which was all just technical skill set. But I've obviously really want someone who is got ownership, dedication, capacity to think outside the box, and ability to be able to think exponentially as well,
Yes.
So that's for me around that, but just to help couple all this tie it up tightly, what I was just talking about. So over that time, I've seen so many interns that have come and gone in, but they also have an appetite has changed on who they want to work for too.
Yes.
That's been a big one. It's from the days when you and I probably put up with a lot of BS because that's what we should do, and you don't rock the boat and you don't say anything.
Yes.
Compared to our values of like, oh, we've got no values, we just go into work and just accept to be probably treated a bit like poo-poo sometimes.
Yeah, that's right.
And belittled and put down and made to feel
Just part of
mediocrity.
it. Yes.
Whereas my philosophy in dialogue is, there's a way that you can talk about what you didn't do right and correct and how you could change. But I've noticed a lot of them they want quality people to work with as well.
Yes.
They don't want to put up with that old school mentality thing that, you would have had prolifically in your sector.
Absolutely.
And I had in mine, and even my previous one in chefing, like it was notorious. So I don't know if I've really even helped answer any of that. Then I went on a tangent, but
worthwhile though. Worthwhile some of those comments around just how the working environment has changed and people's expectations on both sides, employer and employee, how those expectations have changed.
Yeah, they have.
So I know in your business, Larissa, and maybe this is the case, I'm kind of making an assumption here, is that particularly from interns and people coming in, that they may work for the company for a certain amount of time. So they may come, do a piece of work and go. So certainly, can you talk to us particularly around then, like your onboarding of those people, and just, I suppose, connecting them in with your company when it might only be a short amount of time. And I suppose where I'm going with this is I hear a lot of business owners who kind of, if they're going to invest in their people, they want to nail them to the floor and go, right, if I'm doing some training and some mentoring with you, then you're not going anywhere. And then when they leave or when then there's like, I can't believe I invested in them. And that I hear that a lot from business owners. And I kind of just want to get your take on it, because I get that, you'll have interns come in or students and they'll do a piece of work and then go and then might come back, and there's fluidity in that. So talk to me around that concept of mentorship and expectation and people coming and doing work and maybe leaving, and that on-demand kind of workforce.
Yeah. Maybe I don't have so much of that mindset that you just mentioned before, that methodology of thinking. Mine's very much probably attached to what I made mention of, is around that duty of care I have as a leader to make and shape the leaders of the future who are going to help drive and take my industry and sector
I love that
ahead.
mindset. It's just such a
away
different paradigm to have, right?
It takes away that hostility or that annoyedness, which I'm presuming
and
might
you
be.
owe me something.
Yeah.
That kind of piece that I find.
Yes, set it free. I don't let that contaminate my mind. So, yeah, taken on lots of interns. Our intern program's been really around which is why we've probably got so much demand for it. I have to push back is because all the interns that work through us, whether they're work experience or actually doing a proper internship, is they get to work on real life projects. So when they walk out the door, they've got something that they could point to on a public domain to some degree.
Yes.
Or we've curated a fresh new project with them. So we mentor them over that 8-week period and shape them up so they treat it like, well, this is a practice mini of what it's like as a job.
Yes.
So we've taken on a few interns. So over that 5 years, I've had a few who have been employed and have come and gone. One wanted to move out of environment and go into, he was actually media and journalism, and he wanted to move into the sporting arena and went to London and had opportunities.
Completely different.
Yeah, and other parts of Australia. So I've had them all come and go, but it's quite cute because I feel like there's all my cool little interns sprinkled everywhere and that impactful, purposeful change that I've done in some little way, shape or form. And I know they all come back and say that. But a lot of it, yes, we teach the technical stuff. Mm-hmm. This is how you need to write an environmental management plan when you leave uni, okay? I know you didn't get taught at uni.
Here's the outline.
This is it. So we're going to do a big practice round in your internship. But it's all the other part of mentoring, self-worth and value. A lot of those little demons come up when we're sitting and mapping out a lot of stuff with those interns over 8 weeks. All their self-worth and value stuff comes up, feeling lack of, not good enough, or not sure where they're going or what they're doing, or unsure if they should even be doing this career. So a lot of mentoring, and I think out of all the interns we've had, that's probably been, yes, they love the fact that they do real stuff, but they come away so much and feel so much more grown and evolved from that period of time. And that for me, I think for me, coming even nothing to do with environment now, it feels like just my own personal duty of care of what I need to do. And I can run that through the platform of obviously having an environmental company.
Yeah. And certainly sometimes I remember doing some work with a corporate anthropologist, and he would often say that. He'd say, of course, organisations and companies have a purpose and they deliver a certain service or product, but sort of underneath that often is another sort of core fundamental kind of thing that the owner of the business achieves. And certainly what I'm hearing from you in that mentorship space and that self-worth and that confidence and all of that. Yeah, people leave with technical skills, but they also leave thinking differently about themselves and their approach. And what a gift. And we know it can make such a huge difference. When I talked about, one of the first questions I often ask people in workshops is, talk to me about someone or, a leader that's really influenced you and left an impact. And sometimes, it may be a leader they've had only for a short period of time. It may be 15, 20 years ago, and they still can, there's a quote or there's something from that leader that they still remember. And they go, I bet that that person doesn't even know that they made that. It's like a teacher or whatever, but they stick. And I just think as a leader, like, what a privilege to, and you may never know the difference you made, but what a privilege to give that to someone that they then take it, as you said, to maybe the other side of the world in a completely different career, but they take that with them.
Yeah. I think I grew up a lot not having a lot of confidence and not being super intentional or going, I don't really know what I'm doing, or struggling with that purpose piece.
Yes.
We can struggle with it when you're 15, you can struggle with it when you're 30, 40, you can struggle with it any time. But for me, it was instilling confidence. For me, that's huge in leadership, instilling confidence, not the opposite of what we have going through our bosses. They weren't instilling confidence. I was infliction. But instilling confidence is a big one, and I think that's where that impact touch point that you mentioned when you remember someone 15 years ago who did something or stood by you or you know, made you think about something differently or just lifted you in that space where you probably needed lifting.
Yeah.
Because everyone needs a good nudge because you can be hard on yourself. So you got to help someone come in to help quiet down those voices that say sometimes you're not so super awesome at that, but you know you are a little bit, but the nasty voices.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have a segment on the podcast, we name it Leader Shit, and it's sort of the shittiest thing we've done in leadership, sort of like a confessional. So something, and I've got many stories, something maybe you've done that, like you're thinking, I wouldn't do that again. So a mistake you've made, or just something that you tried, maybe it's a story or just an approach that you're like, didn't work for me as a leader, and now I do it differently. Is there something that comes to mind for you?
I felt like I'm trying to break this question in a way, as in like something that was a flunky moment, or as in just in business stuff, or I'm trying to think of what, if I keep it channeled in leadership, what have I done in my leadership that's not been as good compared to?
So it might be in recruitment decisions. It might have been what you did around mistakes that were made, or you can tell I'm channeling my own dark moments of leading teams where I'm like, oops, a daisy, that wasn't a great hire.
Yeah, well, I have not felt too bad with hire, that side of things. I can probably add some value. I can't really like nail something that's specifically about, well, when I did this leadership, it was completely a blowout and it was just turned into a mess. But I think one that might come to mind, which might help add some value. So I started an industry association probably about 6 years ago maybe, and I just went in it gung-ho, just thinking I was fine, I was going to make it work, it was all going to happen. So I think my leadership in that was around naivety, and it went really well for a fair few years, but then the industry just sort of didn't seem to uptake our association. We weren't getting memberships we were supposed to do, but I just didn't keep – I just kept going and going and going, and I think maybe I can pull myself up on my own leadership to myself.
Yes.
So let's look at it from that position. I'm wanting to be this leader and doing all this stuff, but I'm actually not leading myself to identify that this association isn't actually going to work, and I need to shut it down. And, I had to close that industry association, and it was
time off.
And it was horrific on my ego. Yeah, so maybe that leadership on that was my ego was too far involved. And it caused that conundrum. Yeah. There was many other aspects on why that didn't work, but our learning aspect that came out of that leadership of running an industry association for 4 years was, I had a little bit of ego attached to it. And not ego as in like I thought it was so awesome and bravado and puffing my chest plate out. It was probably more...
It was still in service. It was still...
Absolutely.
In that
dedicated
space,
to it. Yeah, in renewable fuels. And anyone knows like I'm so into biofuels and renewable fuels. But it was more that I just didn't want it to defeat me. So it was that part of that ego where you're like, no, I'm going to keep pushing through. Whereas a full true leader would stop and look at that and go, this isn't working. Yeah. And it needs to stop. Or
and that's kind of the
recalibrate.
A bit of the flip side of what probably has made you is being on purpose and being driven and to keep going. So in a lot of times that's really worked for you.
Yeah.
But occasionally it doesn't.
It can be your own demise.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I think that can be the way in any sort of leadership traits and qualities and things like that. And it's that constant checking in, that constant sort of, self-evaluation and self-awareness piece and that checking in that we have to do. You can't get around it.
Yeah, you do. You got to consistently keep working on yourself with that.
Yeah. Before we sort of wrap up on this leadership piece, any other comments from you around just what's worked as a leader? Anything else that you think would add value in someone that, particularly if they're stepping up into a team leadership space and it's the first time that they're responsible for other people's results and things like that. Any final sort of tips or things to add?
Yeah, I think the cliche one is obviously having a really good sounding board network, people around you who are sounding boards, / mentor, so to speak,
Yes.
whether it's paid or not paid. There's a lot of significant value in having someone that you pay to help leverage to get you where you need to get to. And what else in there? Yeah, really recalibrating and checking in on yourself, as you
Yes.
mentioned there. That's super important because you do go on the tangents and you're going for it all the time. And, being able to sort of pause and recalibrate, I think, is really a big one. But, yeah, having the importance of that network around you and those people, like when the interns come in straight away, I'm like, you get that LinkedIn sorted. You need to have that. I want you to
Yes.
identify who the top 5-10 companies that you want to work with on the Gold Coast or in Queensland, or, you know, like you need to start going to things and jumping in conversations. But, you know, I've had some really amazing champions who've held my hand as well over the years, based here on the Gold Coast, people who've really stood by me steadfast to amplify or corral clients my way to my business. And having those champions is so important as well.
Yeah, I've certainly found that as well, is that, for obviously from like a work basis and that referral basis, but just people you can be honest and open with and real with, and because the waves of business and riding those waves, good network, good support.
Getting rid of that facade that we can have a little bit attached when things might not be going as great and awesome, being able to be, you know, super transparent and clear and being able to have that conversation with people like I have in my business where, like, you know, times I'm like, how do you scale? Like, how do people get to knowing they can afford 2 full-time employees? Like, what is that? What does that mean? Like, how do these people work it out?
When do I do that? Yes.
When do I do it? Do I sit down in Excel and map it all out? Or did they know they had, like, another 200K worth of work coming in before they made that decision? Like, they're hard. Like, everyone has a different version and model of it, but you need
absolutely.
to have champions around you to help, corral you through that headspace.
Yeah, some of that decision making. Now, you know, Larissa, on this podcast as well, it is about life, love, and leadership. And I am looking for big love. I'm on a bit of a mission at the moment. Haven't been in the past. I've kind of been a bit more, say, loosey-goosey. I don't know if that's the right word to describe my dating life, but yeah, a bit more. I'm not sure what I'm looking for. No intentionality about it, right? Now, this year, I don't know, there's been a paradigm shift. Something has happened inside of me. It's a time that I'm like, no, now I think having someone and having a partner and having that, I feel like for whatever reason, the time is right. What do I do about that, Larissa? Like, what? Now that I'm trying to set this intention, I'm like, oh, this is tough though. So dating advice or love advice, talk to me about that. Give me some insight, words of wisdom.
I love this. This is great.
Yeah.
This is a sign of growth and expansion that's happened for you, whether it's around deservedness and what you know, you're fine-tuning the values of what you want.
Yes.
When I've gone through those moments as well, like yourself, I've been in a relationship now for 3.5 years, so it's a little bit more concrete. But the person I'm with now, before that, I went through this space of going, oh, I've had a few relationships now. I don't think I can get this down pat.
Yeah.
So I did some workshop around that sort of stuff, which was a lot around deservedness and self-worth and value things. But one of the exercises was to write 101 things on the type of man that you want. But you're writing it real, like it's actually real. Like he lives 10 kilometres away. He owns this type of car, or and I'm saying ones that I kind of had, like always smells really nice. He likes to wear nice clothes. He enjoys doing that. So you've got to write the things and that exercise pushes your brain to rewrite and reprogram the version of the man that you want in your life compared to ones that we've done before where we kind of go in unintentional and random.
Yeah, it's just loosey-goosey.
Yeah, you're like, oh, okay.
Yep.
Because what it does is, and what it did for me is it helps create boundaries and defines what my expectations are and what I want as a woman showing up now, late 30s, like mid-40s, going to our 50s. This exercise is powerful because it does make you ask those questions. And it can be super tiny or specific, like he really enjoys wearing great quality shoes, or he loves to plan spontaneity hiking trips, or whatever resonates with you, and stuff that you think might be ridiculously outside the box. And the type of man that you want, you put it in, like you write it like it's real, like it's totally done, it's sealed. This is the guy, this is the man. Yeah.
Because I think certainly when you don't have that intentionality, for me anyway, I just keep getting this, even a date I went on recently on the weekend, and I was like, I'm just not sure. I just think, I don't know what it is. And my friends then are going, what was it? Because he seemed like this, and this. And I'm like, and I can't put it into words, and I can't articulate it. And like this, it just continually kind of happens.
Yeah.
And the crew are like, what's going on here? Like it's been a long time. There's been a lot of dates.
Yes.
And after every date, it's like, you just get this look on your face of just, and they're just like rolling their eyes. So I'm looking for wisdom.
Yeah, that's
so
the
maybe
energetics.
that.
Yeah, and that's the energetics.
And I feel like I turn up and I don't know sort of what to ask, and I don't know. I'm just, I'm very passive and I'm whatever. And I have received feedback from those who have been kind enough to give me feedback. Thank you, men of the Gold Coast. That, like, I'm not sure what you're after or what you're looking for. And that they just didn't get a real connection from me. And I'm like, well, no wonder you're not getting a connection. Like, I know from my work when I'm on point and when I'm truly connected with the client, and the work just keeps coming and coming and coming because of it. And yes, other aspects of my life, not so much.
It's all right. We all can have those little we're killing it in one section and the other section, woo, it's not as best in that one. But yeah, I think the energetics for you, and it sounds like it's just this fine tuning on what it is exactly that you want, because you'll use that as a gauging system then.
Yes.
It's like you've written this script.
Yes.
These 101 dot points or 83, whatever you want to do, write it to the lucky number you have. But and that will define and help shape out and provide, you know what it's like, transparency, clarity, it's epiphany at times.
Yes.
And when you've got that, then you kind of can move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah.
And no more, yeah, those kind of moments. Yep. All right, well,
beautiful.
It's going to be exciting when I find him, Larissa. You'll know about it. You will know.
Great journey.
Absolutely. Oh, boy. I'm hoping that one day I'll be able to sit back. Well, obviously, when I write the dating book, which I'll write at some point, yes, I will laugh. I'll be sitting with him, having our glass of wine or our champagne.
Yeah,
you'll be laughing.
Ticking off all the numbers that you nailed.
Absolutely. It's going to happen. Larissa, it has been an absolute delight to have you in the podcast studio and have a chat. And yeah, for me, what I love about, particularly, I know you've been on a lot of different podcasts and been interviewed a lot, and it's nice to take, I think, specific topics and to kind of get your views and feelings on that. So for me, and I know for our listeners, it's going to be very valuable and some real takeaways from our discussion. So thank you. And of course, we leave with a bit of a woo-woo moment.
Ooh.
These are it's your message from the universe. So today I have two boxes. I have trust your crazy ideas, or I have dream. Which box do you want to pick from, Larissa?
Oh, I'm feeling dream.
Yep.
That one really came up for me.
I saw when I put that. Now let me get the cards out. And you can pick one, whatever. There we go. And just pop it, just open the front of it. It's like a little fortune cookie, but without the cookie part, as I always say.
If you can dream it, you can do it. Mr. Walt Disney. Love it.
A lot of what we spoke about.
It is indeed, yeah, and some big decisions I'm making as well at the moment in the company. So that was a cute little clarity.
There you go.
Little
That's your
wink from the
message.
universe.
Absolutely. Dream it. Larissa, so where can people find more about yourself, about your company, if people want to connect, platforms and how to do that?
You can Google Larissa Rose and you'll see flower. There's a rose called Larissa Rose as well.
I was so envious when I Googled, and there's your beautiful photos and also surrounded by roses. When you Google me, you don't get that. And I'm like, oh, how cool. That first page looks so cool in images. So I love
Yes,
that.
it
So
is.
you can Google.
Larissa, yes. And obviously I'm the director of GG Enviro, environmental consultancy business, which we're on pretty much all the platforms except those cool funky ones that if you're anywhere under 25,
Are you
I'm not
TikToking?
on.
What are you doing, Larissa?
No
Are you
TikToking, no Snappy, Snapchat. Is that one old now? Is that one getting a bit old?
I think so. This TikTok seems to be where it's happening, but
Yeah.
not for me either.
Chat
at this
to me on
stage.
LinkedIn Connect. It's the easy one there.
Love that. Thank you so much.
Thank
It's been an
you.
absolute pleasure.
Oh, great chat.
And that is a wrap for the episode, everyone. So go out there this week, sprinkle your magic in life and love and leadership, and we'll be back next week. I'm Midja, and thank God it's Monday.
We trust you enjoyed this episode of the Mondays with Midja podcast. Host Midja Fisher is a leadership expert, keynote speaker, coach, and facilitator. To find out more about Midja, visit midja.com.au or follow her on Instagram at Midja Fisher. And make sure you subscribe, share, and leave a review.